Hey, it's Josh.
And this is Phoenix.
And this is CuberChats.
Hi, this is Daniel Goodman.
Dylan Wang from JPerm.
Ian Scheffler.
Shivam Bansal from India.
This is Alex from Z3 Cubing.
What's up, guys? This is Jaden McNeil from Australia, and you're listening to the Corner Cutter Podcast.
Hey, that's right. Welcome to the Corner Cutter Podcast. Podcasting since 2014 and cubing since 2015. I'm your host, Josh, and this is the most consistent speed cubing podcast dedicated to entertain and educate you with in-depth conversations with cubers from all across the sport. Anywhere from expert, famous cubers down to beginners. And today we're kind of going right into the middle with a CuberChats episode. So, today's guest is Phoenix. He's the only one that was able to join us for this CuberChats episode, but it turned out fine. So, we discuss how to control your competition nerves and some good ideas to calm yourself down. And then also, near the end of the episode, we discuss and just share some funny cube assembly stories that things that have happened to us over our cubing journey. Most of them, or quite a few, are with 4x4s, so that's pretty interesting. But he also has a 6x6 one, I have a clock one, so those are pretty fun as well, so make sure you stick around for that. Before we jump into our conversation, I wanted to let you know, if you have any feedback, please email me, josh@thecornercutterpodcast.com. Yeah, so just shoot me a quick message. Also, you can go to thecornercutterpodcast.com. That's the website, but then put /feedback, and you can record a message. There's an email form there, and I love audio messages. Also, the question of the month, I still want to do that, so send in your answers. I want at least 2 more before I talk about it, because I've gotten only 1, I think. So send in your answer to question of the month, and the question is, what is your favorite YouTube cuber and why? That's what I want to hear. Why is it your favorite YouTube cuber? So could be anybody, big or small. I want to know. So thecornercutterpodcast.com /feedback, record an audio message with your answer. And so that's the question of the month. I want to hear from you. So let's jump into CuberChats. Okay, so for CuberChats this week, I have Phoenix on. Welcome back.
Hello, thank you.
So let's just jump right into your topic, or at least the first topic for today. You go right ahead.
So, the topic I suggested was nerves during cubing competitions. I had actually had a cubing competition yesterday that I went to, and it was really fun, but my biggest problem was nervousness, and like when I was trying to solve on 3x3, my hands were like shaky, and I had a lot of trouble with it. And till second round 2, when I managed to calm my nerves down a little bit. So
I guess the point of your topic today is how to conquer the nerves and.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, my experience in the past has been, well, I guess my first 3 competitions, I didn't record my solves, and I would always get really nervous before each solve. My hands would be shaking, especially on events I cared about.
Mm-hmm.
But then on my 4th comp, I started recording the solves myself, and for some reason I wasn't getting nervous. Like after the first event, like 2x2, I was like, wow, I wasn't nervous at all. Maybe I can't decide. I had gotten a stack mat before that as well, so I'm not totally sure if I was nervous because like the camera distracted me. Well, so I couldn't really think about being nervous before I start solving,
Mm-hmm.
or if it was practice with the stack bat, just made me more comfortable in the competition scene. But I do think the camera did help.
Yeah.
And so just setting it up or just kind of joking with the judge while setting up the camera and then just kind of not thinking about solving until I actually had to. I found that kind of changed my competitions.
Yeah, my experience with nerves during cubing competitions, my first competition, I was not very good, so I kind of just set low expectations, so it was hard to be nervous. I was just kind of like, whatever happens, happens. And the second competition was quite a bit later, so I was quite a bit better. And that was when I started recording my solves. And with me, that made it a lot worse. I couldn't think straight. I was one of the problems was that I was trying to keep the cube in the camera, and that was always distracting, and I was having trouble with that. And then, but this last competition that I went to yesterday, first round of 3x3, I was kind of having the same problem, because I was trying to I was just trying to keep my cube in the camera, and I was having trouble because my hands were super shaky, and so I was really disoriented, and that was a big problem until, and Pyraminx and Scube, which I competed in, but I don't really care about. I only really compete in those two because I know how to solve them. So those two, I just kind of joked with the judge, and I wasn't really, experienced in those events. So I was just kind of I wasn't really trying, I guess. So in those, it was mostly just I wasn't really nervous because I didn't really care. But 3x3, which is my second main event, I guess, I was really wanting to place well, and I really wanted to get a sub 19 average. But in round 2, I didn't record my solves. I just had my parents record them, which was quite a bit better. But also, I took a more serious attitude. I wasn't joking with the judge or messing around beforehand, or I was mainly just trying to calm myself down. So I guess it worked because I got a low 19 average. But so with nerves, I guess with me, I just tried to it sounds cliche, but right before the solves, I took super deep breaths and closed my eyes and put my head against the table, and it worked, and I guess I did pretty well. But one thing as a judge is I tried, when I was judging, I tried not to interfere, try not to make jokes, because if people are trying to be calm and you try and make a joke, I think that can be pretty distracting, which I did see with other judges there.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I think an event that you care about versus an event that you're just competing to have fun, there's a huge difference in there as well. Kind of like what you were just saying, but it's I'm sure everybody listening finds this as well, but I always seem to do super good at the events that I don't care about. So it was my second to last competition, or competition 2 times ago, whatever. I guess second to last, but that seems yeah. I guess that's right.
You're done.
I wanted to get some better times in Megaminx, but I didn't care about Megaminx really. Just sub 2 would be fine for me. And first round, I just was having fun, and I started getting all these fast solves. First, I got a 147. I averaged just under 2. Got 147, 153, and then I got a 130, which I was shocked when I stopped the timer, because that was my overall PB from just practicing at home and official. So that was fun, but why can't I get these good times in events I care about, like Pyraminx or 3x3?
Yeah. And for me, actually, my at not this last competition, but the competition before that, so I guess 2 competitions ago, I was competing in one-handed, and for me, I basically started one-handed about 2 weeks earlier, so I wasn't expecting much. I averaged like 45 or 50, and so I wasn't really expecting much. And for that one, it wasn't like something I cared a lot about. And I did it, and I ended up doing, for me at least, I got a 36 average, which was by far my PB average, like by a huge margin, like overall. And so I was super shocked, and now that's my main event and so now I'm kind of scared about the next competition. I hope nerves don't like take over me in that too, because this last one didn't have OH. But this last one on 4x4, the cutoff was 130, which I knew I would never be able to get under because my PB single was 146 before the competition, and I don't usually do 4x4, but right before the event, I got a 144, which was my PB, and I was like, oh, okay. So I went in and I wasn't really that interested, and I didn't really care, and I knew I would only get 2 solves because I wouldn't make the 130 two solve cutoff thing. So I didn't really expect much, and then my first solve was a 129.
No.
And I was like, I got no parity. One of the centers when I solved the white and yellow centers, the red and green centers were already solved, and the solve was just incredibly easy, and I got no parity. But I got a 129, which was insane. And then the next solve was like a 136, which was another PB, or it wasn't another PB, but it was like better than my other one. So I was really surprised, and so yeah. I mean, I'm kind of more interested in 4x4, and I want to actually try on that one now. But
yeah,
I could see when you like don't care about an event as much, you do quite a bit better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Good job.
Yeah,
I guess that just proves our point right there. Megaminx and 4x4.
Mm-hmm. I did not see that coming.
Yeah, but I guess bigger events too, like events that take longer.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the initial few seconds you might be a little nervous, but then you can calm down and really execute how you need to. I have also found that controlling your breathing before solving helps a lot as well. So just taking slow breaths in and out, like 4 in, hold for 4, hold 4 out. That works great for me. It really just calms me down and slows my heart rate, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And like the biggest enemy to cubers, which is contrary to most other events and stuff, is adrenaline. Because in like I don't know, running or like swimming, their adrenaline like makes you quite a bit faster. But in cubing, it's really, really bad, and you just have to find a way to flush that out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've actually never thought about that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's really more of a mental game, I guess, than a physical one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because calming yourself down it's really hard, and what's really bad is if you get like your first 4 solves, then this mind game is really, really bad. And if you get your first 4 solves, and say like they're all pretty good, and you think to yourself, I need this solve this time to get a PB average or something, that's really bad, because then you're like, oh, I need to get under that, and it freaks you out. At least it does for me. And so that's why I don't think about any of my solves like before the average is done.
Any other things that you can think of, like if someone's going to their first competition and they're kind of nervous and they don't know what to expect and want to do well, even though they might not be that fast. What are some tips for them?
Well, I think for your first competition, I mean, if you think of it as a competition, it can easily be overwhelming. But if you think of it more as like a social event, like a way to meet other cubers or something like that, it's easier to be calm about it. Because if you think about it as I really want to do well or I want to get good solves, then it's easy to psych yourself out. But if you're thinking I want to meet some friends or some cubers, or especially if it's your first competition and you don't really know other people, then it's easier to just kind of think of it as more of a social event than as something you're competing in or trying to do well in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even for people who've already gone to several competitions, this was my first competition where I went with someone that I knew as a cuber, and I think as I went, it was kind of like we're competing against each other. And I am quite a bit better than him because I taught him how to do it just a month or two ago. But it's like we both set goals, and in hindsight, I think that kind of wasn't a good idea because I wanted to get a sub 19 average or sub 17 single, and I did get a sub 17 single, but I was constantly trying to decide whether or not I want to get a good single or a good average. I was debating over consistency or a good single, and it was tearing me apart, and so I just decided to go for a good single in the first average and a good average for round two. But I was really worried, and I really wanted to get that goal, but I don't know if it was a good idea. I mean, setting goals is good. It's good to have something that you're trying to reach, but for me at least, I think when I'm beforehand, I'm thinking I need to get this this time or something. That just freaks me out, and it doesn't help me at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One other situation I can think of, this is not related to competition, so it's kind of switching topics off of that, but when you're just practicing at home and then you are doing a session and you come across a really good scramble and you're like, uh-oh, I want to get my PB on this, but I don't want to mess it up either. So just trying to stay calm while inspecting and doing those 15 seconds can be hard. I've messed up multiple Pyramix PBs that way.
Yeah. And slightly similar, at least for me, that I don't know why I do this, and recently I've been trying to not do this more, but for a 3x3, if I'm starting out and, I'm looking for the cross and I see a F12 pair already made, for some reason my first instinct is to do the cross and make sure not to mess up the F12 pair at the same time. And that leads to having a much longer cross, and you have to think about it more. And I'm not very good at look ahead, so for me it's trying to think of the F12 pair and the cross at the same time is too much, and I end up getting a mid 20 or something, and it's often disappointing. And I'm like, gosh, there's an F12 pair already made, and I messed it up. But I think if you just go for the cross already, you just do it like it's normal, and if you can see that you can do the cross easily without messing up the F12 pair, then by all means go ahead. But if you're trying to keep it there at the cost of having an efficient cross, it can be more detrimental than you expect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for calming nerves, 3 major things. Just try not to care about the event as much, maybe. Then control your breathing, and also just have fun. Don't.
Yeah, trying to have fun is the biggest thing, in my opinion. And if you are constantly trying to do well, and if you have a bad solve or a bad average or something, and you're disappointed or you're mad, then you're not having fun, and it's detrimental. It's not what you want to happen.
And don't let that wreck the rest of your events or competition. So I think that's a great place to wrap this topic up. Let's move on to the next one. And the next topic is cube assembly stories. So, Phoenix, I know you have a good one. Let's start off with you.
Yeah, well, this is interesting. Me and my friend, who I recently taught how to solve the 4x4. He already knew 3x3. He already has expanded into like bigger cubes. So he for some reason likes his big cubes or his cubes in general crazy loose, and so like he uses a 354M that I gave him. On like I'm pretty sure he uses on blue tensions, which to me is just insane. I can't comprehend that. But on his 5x5, I think, or 6x6, actually, it was a 6x6. He was doing a solve and it exploded. And at first he was kind of like, oh, this isn't a big deal. We can just put it back together like a 3x3. But the internal layer or the internals were very annoying and hard to put together. And as we were trying to put it together, it devolved into basically we took the whole thing apart, and we were stuck with a core and all these pieces, and we had no idea how to put it together. So we spent about an hour and a half or so trying to put it back together, and it was really bad, and we never ended up getting it. And we watched a video, and we finally decided that we could use tape to put it back together, and we put it back together without taking the tape off, and it was bad, and we didn't realize it that we forgot to take the tape off, so we had to take it all apart again, take the tape off, and the tape obviously it kind of fell apart again, and not completely, but pieces would fall apart, and we have to put them back together, and it was really hard, and we spent a whole afternoon basically working on a 6x6 instead of cubing. It was silly.
My story is the first 4x4 I ever got was a Shengshao 4x4. This was one of the earlier versions, so not as good. I mean, like the Shengshao gems are decent, but not like good. But this was an older one, and so I solved it quite a bit, but then I got an internal pop once. And like I was completely new to 4x4, so I didn't really know what had happened, but I knew it couldn't turn. And it was just totally locked. So I was like, I'm gonna have to take this thing apart and see what's wrong. So I took the first couple pieces out, and then I think it basically just fell apart on the table.
Yeah.
So I was like, uh-oh, am I gonna get this ever? Am I gonna get this put back together ever? I wasn't sure, so I spent a whole night, I think, trying to get the core lined up and it back together correctly. And back then I didn't know that you could just put it back together randomly and it would just solve. So I thought you had to put all the white on one side and everything. So eventually I got it back together and I was happy with myself that I had figured it out by myself. So that was fun, but that 4x4 kept popping and popping. And then eventually, once I got more serious about cubing, I upgraded to the whoosh wang original version, and so that was a major upgrade.
Yeah. Another one, actually, when I first got 4x4 for my birthday over the summer, I had already been doing 3x3 and 2x2 and stuff, but I got a 4x4, and I was hopelessly trying to solve it intuitively, and so I was in the car, and I was trying to solve it, and as I was doing it, this little skinny piece popped out. Like, it just straight up popped out. It didn't pop or anything, just this little piece popped out. And it's like I don't really know how to describe it, but it's like a skinny little piece with like a nub sticking out in the middle.
Yeah, and it goes in between the core pieces and the big piece. Like there's the core center pieces and then the two little pieces, one of them popped out and then a bigger piece in between that.
Yeah, and one of those pieces popped out, and it landed in my lap, and I was looking for it, and I accidentally scooped it, and it went into, like, the seatbelt hole, like where the seatbelt is, and I totally lost it, and I thought, how useful is it? It's probably not a big deal. So I kept on cubing, and in the car, not in the car I kept cubing, but when I got home, I was still trying to solve it, and it popped like pieces. It just exploded because that piece is it's very necessary, and so it popped, and I managed to put it back together, and because not many internal pieces popped out, I think only one or two popped out, sets of three popped out, and so I managed to put it back together, just like gripping it with my fingers, and I put the whole thing back together. And this happened probably 2 or 3 times before I legitimately realized that that piece is actually very necessary. So I dug back into the car, and I managed to find it, digging under the seat, and it was annoying, but I managed to get it back together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess finding something like that, it's always super fun when you find it.
Yeah.
So you kind of take everything apart and out to look for, and then finally when you find it, you're just like, yay!
And putting it back together, when I found the piece, I couldn't figure out where it had to go, like which piece was missing, or like which side that piece was missing from. And after a while, it was, or just like when you like pulled it apart, kind of like when you're like, on a 3x3 when you're testing tensions and you pull it apart. Well, when you do that on this 4x4, this is a V cube, by the way. When you do it, the red and yellow edge, the red and yellow two edges, they separate quite a bit farther from all the others. So that's how I figured out that those two pieces were the piece between those two when it was solved were the ones that had fallen out of.
Mm-hmm. Another story for me would be when I magnetized my 4x4. So I guess this is kind of two parts. On the whoosh wing, it's kind of, if the core is loose at all, it's really difficult to get the actual core back together and just get it assembled. So I've spent a good 15 minutes just trying to get the core back together. I would get like 3 of the sides, together, and then try to get the 4th one on, and the other 2 would just break apart. Finally, I think I figured out to tighten it down all the way, and then it's a lot easier. Yeah. But then the second part of this is, you have to take all the pieces apart to magnetize it. And I think I had put some of the pieces on, so the wrong colors were together. So after I assembled it, it wouldn't solve, and it's super confusing trying to figure out which ones you already have or which ones you have duplicates of. So I had to go all around the cube saying, yep, I have 2 of those, yeah. But nope, those are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just made the job a little bit harder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One more story with my 4x4, my old V cube. I got it, and a little bit later we went, I don't know where we were traveling, but we went on an airplane there, and in the airport I was doing it, and I had refused to learn like Redux or Yao, and I was just using this stupid method I made up, but it would get completely solved except for PLL. It would be like 2 pieces that were swapped. Now, not like 2 complete edges, because I didn't have edge pairing or anything in it. It was like completely intuitive. But it was like, it ended up where there were 2 edges that were swapped. Not like PLL parity, or not like OLL parity, or not like PLL parity, but like where like just 2 individual edges were swapped, and so, or 3 or a few, and it was, and every time I got that, I just take it apart or take those edges out and swap them, because I just didn't want to spend the time learning a method. For me, learning like a new method is just, it's, for me, I know it works, but I just don't like it. But so I eventually did end up learning Redux, but I would take the edge out, and as I take it out, I'd, take the other one out and I'd swap them. And I was in an airport and like waiting in like the gate, waiting for the airplane to get there so we could go away. And I was waiting there and I got to PLL and I obviously couldn't solve it, so I took it apart. And I had 4 pieces in my hand, and because I had to swap 4 pieces. It was like an H perm, but like it was like with on a 4x4, but not with dual edges connected. So I had 4 pieces, and I went to put them back in, and I realized I only had 3 pieces in my hand, and there were 4 empty slots. I started looking around, and I was trying to find this missing piece, and it was a the red-yellow edge, because I had put the other ones in, but I couldn't find this one, and it had somehow fallen out of my hand and into my bag, and I went on the airport thinking I had completely lost the piece, and this 4x4 is now void. And I was in the airplane, and I was like, gosh, I don't have a working 4x4 now. So I put it in my bag, I opened my bag, I unzipped it, and I went to put it in, and the red-yellow piece, or it wasn't like a zip-up bag, it was like those, like, bags where you, like, stretched open, I don't really know, like, with the string, and so I had opened it up, and it was not completely closed, so it fell in, and I put the 4x4 in, and I saw it there. So it ended up working, but it was stupid.
Well, I guess it worked out okay.
Yeah, after there was a little while after that I got a Wuchwei Mini. Is that right?
Wuchwei Mini M.
No, it was a Thunderclap Mini. Mini. That's what it was. I got a Thunderclap Mini M from the Cubicle. So yeah, that's that.
I guess final assembly story. I've been making a lot of magnetic Ling-Ao clocks recently because I'm selling them. And but sometimes, I don't know if you've ever taken a clock apart before, but the dials on the 4 corners sometimes are pretty loose. It's like 3 separate pieces and they fall out like all the time. So that's annoying. And if you don't get them back in exactly, they won't match up to the 12. So I failed to check that sometimes. And after I've gotten the clock all screwed together, it doesn't matter, but the faces on exactly how I want them, and then taped up perfectly, and then I just solve it to make sure it solves. This has happened multiple times where one of the faces is just like off by 1. So one's at 12 and then the other side's at like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. That's so annoying because then I have to take all the tape back off, take it apart, and fix it, and then redo it because I like getting the tape on perfectly the first time, but that doesn't always happen. So maybe I'll be more careful after this.
Yeah.
And solve it before I tape it up.
That makes sense.
Well, Phoenix, I had fun chatting. Thanks for sharing the great calming nerve information, and those were some fun stories. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, that was fun. Phoenix, thanks again for coming on the podcast. I'm glad you were able to make it. And so, if you have any feedback, make sure to email me, josh@thecornercutterpodcast.com. And then, remember, question of the month. I want to hear from you. What is your favorite YouCuber and why? Go to thecornercutterpodcast.com/feedback, or you can just go to the website and click on the contact page and record an audio message there through SpeakPipe. It's so easy, and you can do as many tries as you want if you mess up, like I normally do when sending messages to other podcasters, so I like that. So, thecornercutterpodcast.com/feedback. One other thing I did want to let you guys know is I released my magnetic clock tutorial. It just went out a couple days ago, and I think it turned out pretty well. It is 29 minutes long, but it's super in-depth, and it's exactly what I do to make a magnetic clock. So if you want to see how I make a clock, then just go to youtube.com/thecornercutterpodcast, and it's my newest video besides this podcast episode. And so I'm selling magnet sets and selling magnetic clocks as well. So if you want one, you can go to thecornercutterpodcast.com/clock magnets, or magnetic clock works as well. So whichever one you want. Also, all the links in the show notes. I know that's a lot of web addresses. So thanks so much for listening. I really appreciate you guys. And that is it for episode 73. And now it's time to take this one back to the scrambling table. And I'll talk to you guys again next week in episode 74 of the Corner Cutter Podcast. Working on a few pretty good interviews. Keep an eye out for the episodes. Bye.